listening to the Astral Hour. I'm your host, Astral Meadow. Join me as we take a glimpse into the mysterious. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm joined with my friend Ruth Shelton, the Empirical Herbalist. She heard her calling over 20 years ago to start working with the plants, and that's what she did. For the last 2 decades, she's grown herbs, foraged, created formulas, worked with clients, taught classes all around the Midsouth, including out of her classroom in her house. She believes in the power of plants to heal, to inspire, teach, and to nourish. She spends her time listening to create recipes for medicine, food, and products. Her hobbies include reading, gardening, good food, and good friends. Welcome to the show.
So excited.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you on here. It's been a long time coming, so I've had a lot of time to think about what would I ask Ruth that I would
Yay.
share with everybody. So, yes, I've been working with you for years and years now, so I'm very familiar and appreciate all of the beautiful wisdom that you share with everybody. So,
Thank you. It feels weird every time people will be like years. I'm like, oh, she means like 2 or 3, and then I'm like, oh no, it has been years.
right, like we're getting close to a decade, like if you round up. So,
No. Oh, okay.
right, like pre last child or in between the two children. That's when.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, crazy.
Yeah, it's great though. Um, okay. So for those who don't know you so well though, could you just share a little bit about yourself and what drew you to start working with plants?
Yes. So I always call it my origin story because we're comic book geeks. But I I remember I was going to a job that wasn't a stressful job necessarily. I just didn't like the job. Um, and I was driving there in the morning and I got stuck because they were doing construction and there were piles, I mean like 10 feet, 12-foot piles of dirt all around my little car. And I distinctly heard you are supposed to be working with the plants and you need to get your hands dirty. And we lived in an apartment, and I just thought this was silly and stupid. Like, how am I going to do this? So, I didn't even question, like, thinking back, I'm like, why did I not question hearing this? But I didn't. I just was like, whatever. And then that day, I went to a local health food store to get my lunch like I sometimes did. And I would get magazines at the checkout aisle. And I got back to my office space or where I was working. And I opened the magazine and there was this 2-page spread for an herbal school. And it was just like this bam. And I said, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to do that. That sounds good. And literally, I went home. I'd never mentioned this to my husband ever. He knew nothing. And I came home and I said, hey, I found this herbal school and I think that's what I'm supposed to do with my life. And he said, oh, okay, that sounds good. How much is it? And I told him how much it was, and he was like, I'm going to cash out some for a 401k and we'll get this started. I was like, okay. None of this seemed weird to me until I told other people. And then they were like, have you lost your mind? This is a scam. And like everybody was so reactionary. My dad was like, if you want to be a nurse, I'll help you go to nursing school. And I was like, that sounds like torture. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. I didn't even know what this was. Like I really didn't have an idea of like what it would be. But I was like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be an herbalist. Um, and then that's what I did.
That's awesome. I really love that because so many people hear that call and they don't answer it for so long. And then it just keeps showing up and they're like, well, finally, 5 years later, I took the first step. So I love how you're like, well, that felt important. I'm gonna allow this to guide me. And you just,
Yes.
then you see the spread and you're like, okay, here we are. It makes me think a little bit of like the wisps, like one little
Hmm.
step at a time. And you're like, okay, the seed's been planted. What's next? And then there's this next thing that's like shiny and like over here. You just,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
awesome and really inspiring to hear people that just take the leap sometimes.
I think so. And I don't like to think about like I don't like to dwell on stuff and plan, which I probably should, but this was definitely the best spontaneous, non-planned decision I've ever made in my life. So it was good. And shout out to my husband who didn't even bat an eyelash at all and was like, okay, let's do this. Because I know a lot of people don't have that in their support
Right.
team, and that would make them question it. So, yeah.
Right. Yes, that's amazing that he was so open to it and
Yeah.
trusted you and your inner guidance.
Yes.
So could you share a little bit about, speaking for the plants, and just a little bit about what you've learned from them? How can plants guide us?
So that has definitely changed because I really didn't know what I was doing when I first got into it. Um, it's something that has developed and gotten much deeper the older I get or the more knowledge I supposedly have or something. Um, but um, they just tell us everything. Like, to me, they are the prime example of what we are supposed to be, what we should aim to be. Um, Plants are the ultimate community. They guide each other, they help each other, they speak, they move, they do everything that we humans do without malice.
Mm.
And I just think that that's incredible. And I would just love to be more like them. And I think they show us how to be by the way they don't compete, the way they really don't harm anything. I mean, they may harm us, but I think that's still subtle in the way that they do it.
Right.
So I see them just in their existence. I see their energy like radiating from them and in them and to us. And I thank them for every bit of nurture they give us when we eat them or when we use them as medicine. And they just astound me every single day. Every time I partake or I'm around them, I'm just in an awe that I am almost never feeling around people.
Right. I really love how, you let the plants kind of speak for themselves. And I'll never forget when I was taking a class, the fear class with you, when I was
Hmm.
going through a whole shitstorm of stuff. And you let us just kind of like gravitate towards whichever plant was calling us. Okay.
Hmm.
And I pick one. I think our eyes were even closed or something.
Yep.
And the
Hmm.
one I resonated with, which I was hoping was going to be a pretty flower or something. I don't remember what it was, but I remember you said, "Are you bitter? Are you bitter, Astral?" And I swear to God, it like unlocked some unconscious thing where I was like, that's actually what it is. Like I'm
Hmm.
bitter and it's
Yeah.
making me sick because, I didn't have the word for it. And
Right.
then you made me a custom tea blend out of it. And
Hmm.
I continue to drink it on and off throughout this because it was like a month-long course.
Hmm.
And it really did help me process it. But I'll never forget the intuitive aspect of it because I hadn't quite worked with it that way. It was always
Hmm.
like, oh, this for that. But to actually work with the plants to help us get to the root of
Yes.
what it is based on our resonance, with
Hmm.
it. And I'm over here thinking, oh, I'm gonna have chamomile or lotus or something. And it was not what that was. And it tasted bitter
Exactly.
too. Like I had to like I had honey to it and stuff just to drink it.
Yeah, I
So,
really like even when I first started, I would tell people, like I would hear, I would know, like, oh, it doesn't have to taste good. But
hmm
we want things to taste good. Like our entire society, like wants us to enjoy,
right.
like what, or like make it palpable or whatever. And plants definitely taught me where nothing else did. No, taste doesn't matter if it's what you need.
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's definitely some teas that I have needed that I'm like, this smells like fish food and tastes
Hmm.
terrible, but it's amazing for me in that moment. So,
Yes.
um, yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what are some simple ways that people can develop a deeper respect and relationship with the plants in their daily lives?
So I think always, like I just think that using them in any capacity or being around them in any capacity, enjoying them in any capacity. So I know that sounds basic, but even if you just sit on grass, you can connect to plants because not only are you sitting on the grass, you're sitting on all of the roots of everything that's connected, and that energy is underneath you. A simple cup of tea, lemonade, anything that you can have access to that has a part of a plant in it will connect you to a greater source of plants. So I don't like I know a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't have 100 acres and I don't grow all of my own food and I don't, you don't need that. Like even just oatmeal that you get at whatever grocery store you go to can connect you to the energy of the plants overall and connect you to oatmeal particularly overall.
Right.
Um, so I just think what feels right to you. Like
Hmm.
some people really enjoy being surrounded outdoors, being, surrounded in the woods, being in a body of water that has plants in it, whether that's your tub or a lake or an ocean. Um, Whatever's going to make you feel excited to do it, because then you're going to do it more often.
Hmm.
There's no one way to do it. I think the easiest way is food, just because we all eat something, whether we like it or not, we all eat something. So I think it's easy to bring plants into your food, more than take a tincture. And tea's super easy too. So,
Awesome. Yeah, I let it just evolve, I
mhm,
started with teas and tinctures, but then I started planting my own. Well, not everything, but the stuff that felt like
mhm,
accessible to me. And I realized that having it right there in front of me, like
mhm.
connected to the root, was a different level of experience with the plant than having it like dried and
Yes.
separated from like its connection to, I guess, like the mother plant or something.
Hmm.
Um, and I felt like at that point, I was able to see it more as a friend when it was like my plant. It was like we had a symbiotic relationship, we were like keeping each other going. And then I just started like meditating with plants all the time. And
Hmm.
I actually blame Steiner for this because I was reading How to Know Higher Worlds,
Hmm.
and like the second stage of meditation, the first was like working with crystals and minerals.
Right.
And then working with plants was the next step. And then there's like these different ways to connect with them individually. So this plant feels different. And you're like asking yourself, like, what were the impressions here that, were the same or what was different? And so I spent like a year of my life, like sitting with plants and reflecting on how they're alike and how they're different and the way that I feel based on what mood I'm in when I start sitting with the plant versus when I step away from the plant. And it was just profound. I mean, it seems really like the simple exercise, but and then taking that and then making tea from the plant that I just meditated with
Hmm.
is like next level. And but it's like I kept allowing it to shift. Sometimes I do like throw them in the bath or and now I even work with essences, which is like it's its own thing, because at the end of the day, like that's what it is. It's a resonance
Yes.
that plant holds. But yeah, it all started with the teas, which I really got introduced from you as far as like having tangible like loose teas on hand.
Hmm.
Um, and then I explored it more, but I definitely would encourage people to, follow, like you were saying, like how they feel guided, but also let it expand.
Oh yeah, and I think once you start playing with, even if your plant is just peppermint, and I don't say just as like I'm throwing it away, but that's
Right.
truly peppermint. Um, if you enjoy once you develop a relationship with one plant, it will expand.
Hmm.
It's impossible not to. So I can't tell you how many people will be like, I hate tea. I just hate tea. I just hate tea. And I will be like, oh, I'll get you to like tea. And it's my biggest
Hmm.
compliment from people who are like, oh my God, I'm a tea lover now because of you. Like, thank you so much.
Right.
But just from like moving from peppermint tea, and you will go into all of the worlds of tea after that. Um, the relationship that you have, like it can't, I don't know how to say this, but it can't be one-sided and it can't be solo. Once you understand what one plant will, and should show you, expose you to, you will not. just be like, oh, that's the only plant I like. So I don't need to learn anything
Right.
else. You will be like, you're sucked into the world of plants then. And
Right. You've been initiated.
exactly, exactly. And you have to know more. You're like, well, if this made me do this, what else is out there? And it's a lifelong journey of learning about them. Um, because you change and the way they show up for you change.
Right. And what your needs,
Hmm.
shift.
Yeah.
So you might go through a moment of like a health crisis, and
Mhm.
now you need a plant that you really hadn't heard of before that might not
Yep.
even be like common to your area. So now you're branching out even more into a foreign realm, hopefully with the guidance of a professional. Um, but it's just like, oh wow, who knew? Like this wasn't on my radar at all. But yeah, it's
Absolutely. Or you may start out with a foreign plant because a lot of people will hear about like the herb du jour, like
mhm.
whatever's really popular in social media
Right.
posts or whatever. And then they'll be like, well, this only grows in India, and the Nepal, blah, 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 and then they'll be like, hey, did you know that 50 plants grow in my backyard that I can also eat? And I'm like, yes,
Right.
yes.
Yes, I do
And
love the
then
way
it
you
just,
help teach
yeah,
that.
it just like amazes people. Or like, oh, that oak tree feeds me too. Oh, it's like
Mhm.
things that we don't necessarily learn in school situations, and then that just becomes part of their life.
Right. Yes. Getting to know your local plants is just great because they're the most accessible. Like they're the ones
Yeah,
you can just walk out and pick a dandelion and pour it, in some tea, which you
absolutely.
definitely are the person I think about when I think of dandelions.
Yay!
So you
Yay!
posted some dandelion thing the other day, but I didn't see your face attached. And I was like, I need to send this to Ruth. Ruth posted this. Just kidding.
It's just the best, most perfect plant. Ever. Like I just and even when I went to herbal school, like we had to write like dissertations on, like your favorite plant. And I always chose dandelion. It's the plant that has spoken to me since I was a kid, but I didn't know why. Um, and I swear if people use dandelion all the time,
Hmm.
like half of our problems would go away.
Right.
And I
Yes.
mean like all of our problems, like half of all of our problems would go away. Just because it's just the most magical plant we have, and not just for health, but for all sorts of healing. And I just
Right.
just adore dandelions.
Yes. And it's so simple. I feel like we've overcomplicated wellness and health and all this to a certain extent. Not that sometimes it doesn't get complicated, but it's almost like if we approach it simply, then it's just like the healing's just everywhere. Like there's just
Mhm.
all of these opportunities around us that we're overlooking because we've overcomplicated it. And yeah, the dandelion is that reflection of how it can be simple. It can just be this
Absolutely.
little
And
plant in your
joyful.
backyard.
Like
Yes.
it's such a joyful plant and such a hopeful plant and such a thorn in the side of people who don't see its beauty. And I love that.
Yes.
I love that dual nature. Um, yeah, just
Mm.
beautiful, beautiful plant. Um,
So, could you share a story or an experience where a plant taught you something profound?
Actually, I was thinking about this. So there are many stories because I swear they teach me something. I mean, I could think about it right now and come up with 15 different stories, but my favorite story, because it was not mine. It was, but it wasn't. And I have permission to share this story, but my son, when he was about 16, was going through a lot of emotional and mental health crisis. And he was, of course, 16 and full of testosterone and full of trying to rebel against anything that he could rebel against because it's the nature of 16. And we were
Hmm.
having lots of hard conversations and hard experiences with him. And my only way of hiding would be to come to the apothecary and work. Like it was the safe space. Like even his, I'll just say it, shitty, shitty energy could not like permeate through the apothecary. And I was working down here and I was putting together, I don't even know, I was putting together something because it had his plant, his allied plant that he has loved since he was a small toddler. And it's fennel. And it's like, I've never seen anyone love fennel as much as Ambrose loves fennel. And I was working with fennel and I just heard like, you need to shut up. Like it was very like, you need to shut up. And I like was kind of pushing through it or whatever. And Fennel specifically said, he's not pushing against you. He's really in so much pain. He doesn't know how to do anything but be mad about it.
Mm.
And I literally just dropped it. And he was upstairs asleep, and I went upstairs and woke him up. And I said, I think this is what's happening with you, and tell me if I'm right. And he was like, that's exactly what I've been trying to explain, and I can't explain it. Like, how
Mhm.
did you know that? And I was like, well, your plant told me. So, it changed everything about the way we approached all of his stuff from that moment on. And I even taught a class on fennel specifically because of Ambrose and because of what fennel taught me because of him. Um, and so I just think that um, even if they're not working for plants in general, if they're not working for you, like people always expect it to be like, oh, I was on death's door and then suddenly I'm not, and I cured this 40 levels of cancer or whatever.
Right.
Plants are our allies, even when it's not for us, but it's for someone else or something else. And we just have to listen. And that's what I try my best to do,
Mhm.
is just listen to what they're going to tell me about what's really going on. Um, because they see things without our emotions.
Right. That's so beautiful. That definitely gave me chills as I was hearing you speak it. So,
Yeah. So pay attention to your kids' plant allies.
right.
And
That's awesome to think about. Like the ones that they
yeah,
just like without you pushing, the ones
yeah.
that they just naturally ask for. So chamomile was definitely one with my son where he would just be like, "Hey, I want a cup of chamomile," and I was like,
Uh-huh.
"Really?" Because like I feel like that it's not like super sweet and like what you would
It's
think
bitter,
like.
yeah.
So I'm like, "Yeah, you can have some chamomile, honey. Are you okay?"
Yes. Well, chamomile is a particular ally for children
Okay.
and for uh, I'm not saying this is about your child, and I'm not saying this is about anybody who identifies with chamomile as being one of their allies, but
Hmm.
chamomile is an ally for trauma that happens in childhood,
Okay.
very specifically. And trauma that happens, maybe that doesn't happen in childhood, but makes you feel like you were trapped in childhood, like you were helpless.
Right. Okay.
That's where chamomile excels.
That's interesting thinking, as a homeopath, we use
Hmm.
chamomilla and it's mostly a infant remedy for
Yeah.
like teething and when they're just kind of inconsolable and or when your client's like an adult but they're kind of acting like a child, like they're just
Exactly.
like can't be soothed. So that's interesting. I learned so much looking at it from the herbal perspective too, is that like that's where it gets
Uh-huh.
its meaning from, even on that energetic aspect. So
Yes.
I didn't think about that until just now. You're
Yes.
right.
And chamomilla was Ceylan's childhood remedy. That was her constitutional because
Wow.
Ceylan was inconsolable, like
Right.
in all aspects of inconsolable. And we worked with a homeopath in Minnesota. And Ceylan what and I'll just like in the world of chamomile and homeopathy, Ceylan was nonverbal
Mm.
for a very long time until Camomilla, she got the right dose and she went up high, like 1 milligram or one
Okay.
mm or whatever.
Hmm.
And then she's not shut up since. So
Wow. That's interesting to know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Big fan of chamomile. And it's the herb of the year. It's the 2025 herb of the year. So
Okay.
everyone should get acquainted with chamomile. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I'm wanting to plant some this year. I had some a while back and it just did not go well. But I've got like the perfect spot now. And I'm like, oh, I think chamomile would be good there.
Plant
So
it. Plant it. You
if
can
it's
even take chamomile bags of tea and plant those. They have seeds in them. So go ahead and start planting.
nice. Okay. Good to know. Good to know.
Yep.
So, can you share a little bit about the role of food history in herbalism and why it's important to reclaim that knowledge?
So I have a huge affinity for food, and I love making, like getting creative. But in the world of herbs, that's how herbalism was passed down.
Hmm.
Like, it was passed down with foods that you ate, stews that you drank, broths, teas, etc. And it was also primarily a female dominated field. Until about the 1970s. And then a lot of men got interested in herbalism. So, and kind of took it out, and, started really like breaking apart herbs, and this constituent does this and this, and it just all became very medical based.
Hmm.
And in my experience, um, a lot of people still want to use that against the herb and against the herbalist or the practitioner. And I've been told my entire career until probably the last 3 or 4 years that kitchen herbalism is not real herbalism. It doesn't count, doesn't work, it's not medicinal. And would at first I was shocked that someone would say that because it just seems ignorant, like truly
Hmm.
ignorant, not judgy, but like you don't know what you have here, like you don't know what's going on. And then I figured out that a lot of it was still just misogynistic and trying to tell women to get, like what you're doing doesn't matter. So just go away, little girl.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think when we look to the history of herbs and we look at how they were world changing, and I don't mean that as hyperbole, but literally world changing in the kitchen. Like the kitchen herbs were the ones that are responsible for some of the worst things that we've ever done as human beings, but for some of the biggest explorations and change on this planet. So um, you can't ignore it. And to ignore it is to ignore a massive part of what the plants do and what they have done and what they've been put through. And it's just all about honoring their whole story, their whole story.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, how do you approach teaching people to integrate herbs into their food and daily rituals?
It kind of depends on where the person is. And like I know with you, I can say whatever might sound woo woo in the rest of the world, and I'm okay. But
Right,
not everybody who comes to any of my classes um, is comfortable in that space. So sometimes it has to be about flavor pairings. So
right,
what herbs go well flavor wise? What do you like to eat? What can we bring in to kind of get you comfortable in their world and then go out? Sometimes it can be very energetic, and like with you, pick an herb that you feel an affinity for, and then we can just go through all the ways that you can add that into different types of dishes. Or not, if it's really bitter, like you may be stuck with using it in a certain specific way. It just depends on where I'm at with the person and um how well I read the room. So
right.
it could be. Um, but basically, once people taste food that they like, they kind of get open. If I can present enough information from both sides of the world, um, like energetic and like scientifically backed, they'll ignore the parts that they don't care about and focus on what they do. And if they enjoy the taste, then it's all good. So,
Right, right.
yeah.
So when you cook with certain herbs, do they affect you in similar ways, or is it like when you drink it in a tea, it has a different, overall property than when you bake it? Like, is there
It's a really
anything?
good question. It depends on the herb. Um, Most of them, anything that you can drink as a tea, usually can be incorporated in some aspect of a food. Depending on how good of a cook you are, will depend on how
Yeah.
how likely the whole meal is to be eaten. But it kind of depends. Like certain plants lose a bit of their vitality from fresh to dry. So
Hmm.
if they lose their vitality when they're dried, you're going to have to use more of it in the food to get the medicinal property. So that's kind of like a plant by plant take. But usually, if let's just say a food is good for digestion as a tea, it's still going to be good for digestion and helping digestion in your food, whether it's used fresh or dry. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. And you're
Yeah.
still working with the plant as a whole, whether you're eating it or
Mhm.
just even the smell, of a
Yes.
plant. I feel like, people make incense and all these things.
Hmm.
And I feel like you're still, even though you're not ingesting it, you're still putting it into your field.
Yes. Yes.
So
And like as with homeopathy, it is all energy. It is
right,
all energy. Sometimes you need a higher dose if you're taking the particles of the plant than you would a
right,
homeopathic dose. But absolutely, and I will tell people depending on the plant and their vibration, because different plants have a different vibration and different parts of plants have different vibrations.
right,
Um, People they look at me strange and then they'll do it and they'll be like, oh, because I'll just be like, just carry this tincture bottle in your pocket for a while.
right.
Like just carry it with you, put it in your bra. Like I particularly love to tell people to put motherwort tincture just in their bra. Like you can
Hmm.
take it if you want to, but just it's right next to your heart. It's gonna be good. Um, and then they'll notice and they'll be like, oh, oh, that's different. So
Right,
yeah, you're still in the energy even when you're underneath the tree or smelling the rose, or that's just a different type of healing that they're giving you.
right. Because it's like different levels. Like when you're
Hmm.
eating it, that's very material. So I feel
Hmm.
like it's working more physically, but when you're like smelling it or you're just like putting it near you, and now we're working more in that spiritual realm. And
Yes.
this is interesting because I just observed this the other day when I was making the Blue Lotus tea, that it was steeping next to me. And I
Hmm.
hadn't even taken the thing off, which you're the one that taught me to steep tea. Okay. I never did that. I was just
Yes.
like wasting all the good stuff. So
So many
thankfully,
people.
right. That's where it's like nice to have an herbalist, right? To
Hmm.
help kind of guide you. And like it was such valuable knowledge that, and I still need you a lot, but like I've kind of been able to veer off and be, more
Right.
independent because I was like integrating and like taking notes and stuff. And I've learned so much from you. But,
Thank you.
anyways, it was still covered. So like there was no it's steam yet. And I was sitting there and I swear I started already feeling the euphoric effects of that plant, and I
Yes.
had not smelt it because Justin brought it up to me. So I wasn't even responsible for making it. It was just sitting next to me covered.
Yes.
And I was like, I already feel a little like more
Calm.
chill. Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
I was like, what
absolutely.
is this? What is this?
Yes. Well, sometimes when I'm like driving and I'm really stressed, I will tap into that spirit plant world and just chant certain herbs names.
Right.
And it works. Like it, you'd have to pick the right one. Like you don't want to fall asleep at the wheel or whatever, but I try to pick like lemon balm's one of my favorite because
Uh-huh.
lemon balm is good for relaxing and calming, but lemon balm's about joy, like
Mm,
truly about joy. She's also like a time traveler or time lord. Like, so there, like, that's a really good traffic herb to pick into, you know? And I will just sing lemon balm, like sing it, make little like lemon balm, lemon balm, like do little things.
right.
Um, and it changes the whole mood of the entire car. The rest of
Right.
the trip is better. Yeah,
I
just
love
because
that.
plants aren't like people.
Yes, you got me into lemon balm, and I have a lemon balm plant, and it's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And it comes back. I'm always like, is it gonna come back? But
Oh,
then
oh
I
yeah.
like see it
Lemon balm.
starting to, and I'm like, yes, yes. But the
Yes.
smell alone is so therapeutic for me. But then just like touching it, I don't know. It's just like, is there's something going on there? But I think it like stalks me a little bit because I'll be around it and then I'll notice that it'll just like come up like in conversation. People be like, oh, lemon balm, or I'll
Yes.
draw the lemon balm card, or like all the
Yes.
correspondences to lemon balm start to show up, and I'm like, I almost feel like lemon balm might be like my plant. Like that,
Well,
just like
that would be a tremendous ally. Like she
right.
is so, yeah, she's so revered.
Is
Like,
the lemon balm called Melissa?
yeah, that's her
Okay.
scientific
So this
name.
is another thing. This is another thing, okay? I ordered a homeopathic remedy and they sent me the wrong one. And it was Melissa. So I looked it up and I was like, lemon balm again. Like,
No,
And I was like, what are the odds? Right? It was
That is
like, even, it's
fantastic.
like, well, here's even the homeopathic version of lemon balm. But like, I didn't even realize that that was its like other name,
Yes.
you know? So
Yes.
I was like, okay, something's going on with the lemon balm and I need to figure it out. But yeah, I love that. And you're the one that taught me about thinking of it. Like if you don't have access to it right then.
Hmm.
So like in my pregnancy, I would get kind of nauseous and I would think about
Hmm.
ginger. I would think about
Yes.
ginger. I was like, well, what would it smell? You know, and I would try to like,
Hmm.
think about the way I feel around it, the smell, the taste.
Yes.
And it really would help me get out of like I might vomit right now out in
Right.
public. And just the thought of ginger. So it's yeah, you're the one that brought that into my reality, thank God.
Yay. It's so potent because you really like takes you to another place. Like
Hmm.
it just takes you to where they're at. And yeah, lemon balm is like I taught a whole class on her. Um and it was like a 4 hour class or whatever. But Lemon Balm wanted me to tell the class, and so I feel like I should tell you guys too. Um, she fades in and out, and she's very needed right now. Like
Mm.
she's so needed right now, and then she's going to disappear and she'll be back. But
Okay.
while she's needed right now, everyone should take advantage of Lemon Balm.
Okay.
Yeah. And one of the things, like when I was writing the class that I think your audience might understand or um, she predates even the oldest ones. She predates the gods. Like
Oh,
she's very important. And don't forget that she's important. Like she'll be back.
right.
Don't forget that she's important.
I
Um,
love it.
yeah, she's amazing. Her theme song is Let the Good Times Roll.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In like there's so many songs with that name. And she's like, yes, they're all about me. I'm like, okay, okay. Yeah, she's beautiful. I would love to know, like, I've never taken her homeopathically. If you take that, let me know how she is. Like,
Right. Well, it's so weird to even have it because it's not in any of my common materia medicas. And I
yeah,
literally, it wasn't on my radar. So when I looked her up, it had a very like specific, like, and I
I
had a
bet.
feeling that there's going to be a moment where either me or a client has
Uh-huh.
this very, and I'm like, okay, well, I just kept it and I was going to send it back and they were like, just keep it. We'll just send you the one we messed up.
Right.
So I'm like, something happened for me to have this. So I know that it's going to be relevant, but I don't know when. But
Yeah.
it was a small picture, but it was so specific. So
Uh-huh.
I'm looking forward to the well, hopefully everybody's okay, but like to the
Right.
moment where I figure out
That's
why
it. Yeah.
spirit sent me lemon balm in homeopathic form. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Even like, I don't ever remember coming across it as a homeopath. Like,
It's
so,
not a common remedy
mhm.
at all. Like it's just
Yeah.
I've never ever ever heard anyone ever talk about it. So I would never have bought it. I just didn't think about it. But I'm sure if I put it next to the picture of lemon balm from the herbal standpoint, there's so much that cross over.
Oh, yeah, there would have to
Um,
be. Yeah.
yeah, so I learn a lot by studying the plant from that herbal
Mhm.
perspective. And then I study like the myths and all the,
Same.
the profile of it and its personality, and it helps me with knowing when it's appropriate to give it as a remedy. And I feel like that gives me the advantage to some people in the class who only see it from its homeopathic lens. And it's because I've just been blessed with these teachers that just happen to work with plants. So I'm like, oh, well, I remember this person randomly talking about it. And they just dropped this one little hint about its personality that I didn't get for my homeopathy
Yes.
class. So it's quite
Yeah.
beautiful the way it all
I think that
overlaps.
myth and folklore about plants are like the completely unused materia medica. Like
Right.
like the people who ignore the folklore, like I'm always like, where did this plant start? Tell me where this plant comes from,
Mm-hmm.
and I will know more than if you tell me anything else about like,
Right.
oh, we think this plant's here, but this plant came from China. Okay, that tells me like 20 things I wouldn't have known before, Um,
Right.
to know if it's invasive, to know if it's perennial, to know like all of those things and how they use them with their deities and their
Mm-hmm.
their religion. Like, oh, it tells me everything. And you can hear it when people talk. Like I have a client right now who's going through a detox and I'm like, oh, you swallow your word. Like I know like what
Right.
you swallow your words, you don't talk about how you feel. And she's like, how did you know? And I'm like, because the plant that you're on makes you talk about how you feel. And I can tell the reaction that
Right.
you're having is because you're not talking about how you feel. And she's like, oh yeah, I should take that more. I'm like, yes, you should.
Right. Right. I love that
Yeah.
because that is something that I'm noticing too. And it's like
Hmm.
like our symptoms in our body are reflecting the state that that plant resonates
Hmm.
with. And so I feel like
Yes.
the like curing like thing, it exists in all of this like folk medicine and it's
Hmm.
not actually unique to homeopathy. So I try to tell people, homeopathy did not coin like
Right.
cures like that was passed down. Our ancestors realized that
Hmm.
okay, this person's acting bitter, they need a bitter plant, right? And you're the one that
Exactly.
really taught me that. And so it's just like this universal concept. And, the plants can be used in different ways. So sometimes it might be like treating with an opposite sometimes, but, sometimes like our symptoms are showing us exactly what
Hmm.
we need to heal. And so it's interesting, like our whole state, our mental state, our physical state. We're just like a walking example of the medicine that we need. So,
Yes. Yes. And when the more you learn about the backstory of the plant, um, oh, like Ambrose is a Sagittarius. It's not a
mhm.
shock that he picked fennel because fennel is the Prometheus plant.
Right.
Fennel is the plant that brought um humanity up. Do you know what I mean? Like that's so Sagittarian, it's not even funny. That's
Right.
so Sagittarian.
Right.
And so when you start to see all that connection, you're like, oh yeah, it's so much bigger. It's so, so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where it's like it's all like interconnected and it makes more
Hmm.
sense. And I feel like that's where people are like, "Oh no, Astral's about to make the connections." But that's where I like geek out on it because I love like the way things correspond. So I
Hmm.
love that like this planet corresponds with this plant, which corresponds with this remedy, which corresponds with this personality type, which corresponds, and
Hmm.
I'm like, it shows me that it's all really like everything's connected, right?
Yeah,
And if you
absolutely.
look, everybody can come back to Kevin Bacon. It's like because like everything literally connects if you
Yes.
sit there and think about it long enough, you can be like, okay, and then this person worked with this person who worked, that whatever
Yes.
that what was the game like with
Oh
Kevin
yeah.
Bacon?
Yeah, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Yeah. I
Right.
love that game too. I love that game.
Well, that's how I feel about everything, like
Hmm.
everything comes back to like source at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
if you just keep tracing it back, then you'll be able to discover how it's all just like one
Hmm.
one living consciousness. Um, So yeah, I was doing the deep dive into cell salts when I was like starting to see like the correspondences with the signs.
Uh-huh.
And this is crazy because I didn't start like astrology into cell salts, okay?
Uh-huh.
Went to cell salts. I was working with a homeopath and I am an astrologer, so it did, naturally lead me back there. But then I realized the cell salts I was needing corresponded with my sun sign, with my rising sign, and then I was like, "Oh my God, it's in the chart." And there's people that dedicate their lives like studying medical astrology that are like, "This plant works because it
Yes.
corresponds with this sign, which is in, your house of the body." So it would make sense that
Yes.
this plant would support you in that way, but it really does all cross over at some level, but you don't always need to know, right? Some people don't need to know.
Right.
They're like, I resonate with this plant. I take it. That's my like thing. So that's why I
Right.
can't stop because I need to know. I like to go all the way in because that's just where I find joy.
Which I
So,
think is a very homeopathic thing to be. Like every homeopath I've ever known personally as a human, not just as a homeopath, they
right.
always had to know why. Well,
Right.
yes.
Right. And that's all my Aquarius placement. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to follow the thread. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Exactly. The best
uh,
astrology sign ever. Yes.
right. Well, I was like, oh, I love Aquarius so much. I wish I was an Aquarius. And then I discovered that I was Aquarius rising, that my
Uh-huh.
Venus was there, conjunct my North Node with
Hmm.
Mars, conjunct the ascendant. And I was like, well, no wonder I'm obsessed with Aquarius. Like, 'cause that's what I'm supposed to be. And that is also what I embody naturally as my rising sign. So
Yes. And
it's
you
something that I
brought
just,
forth one, and it's
right,
great.
I know. And I loved you. Like, I loved you. Like, it was like love at first sight. And I was like, oh, well, it makes sense now that I know my natal chart because you land, right there in that first house. You
Absolutely.
shine a light and you help me see myself. So that you were
Oh,
exactly what I needed in that moment to help me heal, right? To find my direction, to attune with my life's direction, and it changed my life. So I appreciate you and your Aquarius
well,
beauty
thank
over
you.
here.
I'm just being the Aquarian.
Right? You don't
Doing
even
it.
have to try, it's just who you
Just
are.
doing it. I mean, like, I don't know. Like, people will give me weird compliments, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even pay attention to what I was doing. I just did it. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Right.
That's just what you were supposed to do.
Yes, yes, I
Mm.
love it. So we've talked a little bit about the spiritual aspect of plants, but maybe we could go into it a little bit deeper. How do you view the spiritual nature of plants and how does that influence your practice?
How long do we have to talk? So I, this is hard for me because they're all there. Like, I don't know, like, each plant has its own spiritual nature.
Hmm.
Each part of the plant, even if it's the same plant, has its own spiritual part. Um, so the generic answer would be they are the greatest things we have. I mean, they're just everything that without them we don't exist. Without us, they don't exist. They are our ultimate relationship. And we just keep thinking that, like, I hate those memes where people are like, well, without humans, Earth would be fine. No, 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 it actually wouldn't. They need our CO2. We need their oxygen. We are symbiotic,
Right.
in order for everything to go on. They're just everything. I can't, like, they give us everything that we need on this planet. They give us food, they give us air, they give us structure, they give us warmth, they give us advice, they give us medicine, they hold our stories, they reverberate them back to us, they hold the time, they hold the future, like they are everything. And we forgot that, or were made to forget that,
Hmm.
or didn't pay attention. I don't know what that is. And for me, it doesn't matter why we don't pay attention, but that we have to pay attention now.
Right.
Um, So we just have to honor them. And I think by building a relationship is the way that we honor them, and seeing them, acknowledging them. It's the ultimate way we should treat each other. So that's why
Hmm.
shouldn't we treat the plants that way?
Right.
You know, there's this quote by Oprah where she talks about every single person she ever interviewed. Didn't matter if they were president, didn't matter, if they wrote a book, if they were a mom talking with their kid, whatever it was. At the end of every episode she did, they would say, was I okay? Was that good enough? Did they see me? And she
Hmm.
says that's what everybody wants. And I think that's what everything wants, is to be
Hmm.
seen.
Right.
Um, and that's the spiritual nature of everything, I think. So that includes the plants.
Right. That's beautiful. I
So,
had somebody ask the records the other day about a plant. I don't remember what the plant was, but it had quite a bit of a root network thing going where
mhm,
like they were all like kind of like the mycelium.
uh-huh.
And the thing that she was meant to learn from it is, and you kind of hinted at this already, that humans can mimic this the
Hmm.
way that they're all working in unison as like one. Like you were
Yeah.
saying, like plants don't, there's no malice, there's no jealousy.
Hmm.
And then they compared it to bees. And they were like, so
Hmm.
plants do it, and bees are like the animal expression of this
Yes.
unity. And it's kind of like this hive mind. And they said that humans used to be more like this. And they used to be more like their stories were all enmeshed together and they were able to almost be like have telepathy between each other. But then there was a separation. So this is like all about the ego
Mm-hmm.
and us forming the I, and that there was something that was lost in the process of the I. Even though it was meant to be. But it's like the plants and the bees specifically were meant to teach us about the beauty of the unity within a species. So that was what this person's writers had told them about this plant. And I was like, well, that's so beautiful, to think about it, that we've kind of been separated. We're separated with countries or, like these lines and, you're this and but it's really like we're all human, so
Hmm.
to separate ourselves doesn't make any sense.
And
And
it
I
will
do
kill
feel
us.
right. I feel like we are coming back together is what is going to save us and reunite us as a species. And then I don't know. I feel like if we could do that, like healing would occur on such a global level, that it's the separation that is creating the disharmony in the
Oh, yeah.
first place. So,
So to bring things back in a homeopathic find the connection way,
yeah.
we were talking about lemon balm.
Hmm.
So lemon balm's name is Melissa because of the bees,
Ah.
because lemon balm brings the bees. Um, Beehive, people who raise bees or, have hives, they can even like put lemon balm around the hives or pat the hive with lemon balm and the bees will always come back.
Hmm.
And in ancient Greek culture, the plant and the bee were the same. That was the goddess of the bees became the plant, Melissa.
That's interesting that you just said that because I have a card, an oracle card, and it's the lemon. I think it's the lemon balm one, and it has Ceres is the goddess,
Uh-huh.
and there's a bee on it.
Yes.
And now it makes sense why all of those things come together.
And why Lemon Balm said that she will be here because she's needed, and then she will go away and she will come back again.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the whole
Mhm.
Demeter and Persephone. Okay.
Exactly.
I get
Yeah.
it. I get
See?
it. I love
And
that
what I
so
love
much.
about it's like you can't make this up. We had no intention to talk about lemon balm, and this is what has come up. So, yeah,
Right. Lemon Bob's like, you will address me.
you will. People will hear my story. You will.
I love
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
And we were talking about, you said something earlier that made me think of this, that they hold our stories. So
Hmm.
in my records the other day, I was, I work with this oak. I think I've talked to you about this
Hmm.
oak before because it's like I hang out with this thing a lot.
Yeah.
And it was like when you work with this single oak that just
Hmm.
happens to live in proximity to you, that oak holds the history of every oak that has ever existed throughout all of
Yeah.
time. And
Yes.
I was like, well, that's so cool. But it comes back to kind of that like hive energy that, it's like they're sharing information. So, like, an oak in a different state somehow has a link to my oak. So, whatever it's learning, I'm learning from my oak. And it was wild to me to think of it that way. It seems so simple, but also that when we work with some of these plants, we are gaining the wisdom from, like you said with Lemon Balm, like she's ancient. So she
Hmm.
holds like an ancient memory, right? And
Yeah.
when we start to work with that plant, who knows what is really unlocking. I mean, if you think about it in the terms of like other lifetimes when you drank lemon balm and like, like
Absolutely.
I feel like it brings us back into these, states that like our ancestors were in,
Yes.
when they were working with the plants and more directly probably than we are even.
Oh, yeah.
And I absolutely learned things from my oak tree. Like, but the downloads do not come through words. It's
Yes.
it's like claircognizance or something. It's like
Uh-huh.
the more you work with it, the more you realize that style of communication. And this is why I loved Schneider's meditations because at first it's like, okay, I'm sitting here with a rock. Okay. Why? Why am I doing this? I feel called to sit with this rock, but then I did start to pick up on subtle energy.
Yeah.
And plants are, not as subtle as minerals. So like once I could talk to the rock, I was fine because plants were like way easier. They have even more personality. And
Oh, they have so much personality. Each plant and plants, you know, plants are not as individual. as
Right.
humans are. So, like,
Hmm.
all oaks have a very similar personality, but may have slight variances, but they're really, really all oaks.
Right.
Um, and they have been all oaks since the beginning of their existence on this planet. So that's how you can tap into like your ancestors' oak tree back in
Hmm.
1006 or whatever, you know.
Right.
Mhm. And yeah, like the healing that you do when you tap into that oak for your entire line,
Hmm.
forward and backwards, it's like the sky's the limit. It's just amazing. And oaks are one of the holiest plants ever. They're revered in literally all ancient cultures as a holy being because they are holy.
Right.
Um, and they're astounding. Their roots reach up to 250 miles.
Mm. I
Like, just
love
think
that.
about that for a minute. That's from here to Chattanooga.
That is crazy, actually.
Like, that's a root. That's a root for one tree.
Hmm.
Like, that is astounding to our minds, but that's just their reality.
Right. Yeah, and I
So
work
that's
with
how they can talk
trees.
to all of them constantly throughout
Right.
everything.
That makes so much more sense. Okay.
I mean, think about it.
The
They're
root
literally
system.
touching each other. Like, they're literally touching each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mostly go to the tree when I'm anxious. So
Hmm.
if I don't know what to do, I just go outside and I just like put my hands and I'll take my shoes off, put my feet on this.
Yes.
And I know my neighbors are like, "Oh my God, what is this person doing when they drive
Oh,
by?"
yeah.
But I use it a lot for that transmutation. And
Hmm.
I imagine it just like all of my worries like going through those roots, which I didn't realize were as extensive as
Hmm.
you just taught me.
Hmm.
But it's amazing because I'll come back in and it's just like I'm clear, and
Oh,
and I
yeah.
feel like I didn't hurt the tree at all. Like it was just it knew exactly what to do
Right.
with all of that. That's like one of its things that it
Hmm.
loves to do. Right? It wants
Yes.
to help support me. It wants to help ground me. And it's like we've just not been trained how to work with them. But it's
Right.
almost like I can tell that that tree misses me, when I have been distracted in my life. And it's like I know that it has some kind of memory of me.
Mhm. Oh,
And it,
absolutely. I mean, if we want, like, trees are the grandparents of the world.
hmm.
And you know how grandparents are. They're no matter what their personality, separate grandparents always miss their children.
Right.
And
Yeah, that
that's,
makes me
yeah,
emotional.
yeah.
I realize how emotionally connected I was to trees when I watched My Neighbor Totoro for the first time. And the
Uh-huh.
dad's just like, he just casually drops, like trees and humans used to be old friends. And I just started like ugly crying. And I
Mhm.
was like, why do we not talk about this in our culture?
I know.
Like it literally brought me to like deep tears because I realized that I'm sure a version of me always knew that, but
Right.
no one taught me that befriending a tree, you know, was something that we've always done. Like we've always worked with
Right.
them and they've
Right.
always been there for us. And it made me emotional to think about how we've kind of neglected those relationships.
As
Um,
adults, I
right,
think
as adults.
children
Yeah.
in like innately, if
Yes.
if you watch your children or if you remember your childhood, there was always a tree that you went to that you climbed. There was a tree that you read under. There was a tree that you did something with. Like you weren't told that's your place to hang out, but that's where you gravitated toward.
Yes.
Um, and we don't get encouraged to do it or something happens.
Hmm.
It changes for each person, but yeah, make your trees your friends, make your plants your friends. Yeah, like trees especially, but
Yes.
rose bushes, yeah, anything.
Yes, I love working with rose. I don't use
No,
it in tea form as much, but
you
because you do
should.
the rose hips. I think you've given me some remedies with rose
Well, I
hips.
do both. I do roses and rose hips, and then I do glycerites of rose. I do tinctures of rose.
Hmm.
I used to have a thing where I did not like rose, and herbalist people look at me like I was crazy. But I had this like, oh, she's so old fashioned, kind of. thing about her. And basically I was told I had to get over that. And so I went and did a huge deep dive and I was like, well, I'm so wrong. It's not even funny.
Hmm.
Um, she is one of my favorite allies of all time. Like probably of all times. Like she's just amazing.
Right. Yeah, I use rose water in
Hmm.
my like spray a lot. That's
Yeah.
where I connect with her the most. But I guess I should think about making teas more.
I mean, we do roses in smoothies. We do, like, I can't tell you how much I use rose, and other cultures do. She's from like Persia, like that's
Okay.
where she was born. So she's from Persia, and that area in the Middle East, they still use like they cook with rose water. They do a lot of rose in their ice creams and their desserts, um, and she's just so tasty. Like, she's lovely. Highly recommend. Highly
Nice.
recommend.
I
Yeah.
love that.
And roses and strawberries, a great combo. Like when you think desserts, roses and strawberry are just like perfect for the heart. Just perfect.
That's interesting because they do seem to resemble,
Mm-hmm.
like a heart. And they also
Uh-huh.
just have a natural, like romantic energy about them,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
which would
It's
correspond with
always
that.
Valentine's. That's what do you think? Roses and strawberries.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, they're
Ah,
both aphrodisiacs. They're like there's like it's a whole thing. And yeah, I won't go I could go into so many things about Rose, but I
right.
will say I think that she gets a lot of assumptions put on her. And I do think that that was maliciously intended. I do think. But she is a great aphrodisiac, but also a great trauma healer. So,
Right. Which, if you think
yeah.
about the thorns, you
Hmm.
might see why originally she might feel repulsive. But
Yeah.
then once you move through working with her, like you did, like do the deep dives, get to know her,
Yes.
it's after you've worked through the thorns that you're able to really get that essence from her, that beauty.
Hmm.
So I love that.
Yeah. She's also really related to oak too. They have similar root system, like and dandy. Yeah, she's a good one. I highly recommend everyone work with her.
I love that. Are there any other plant allies that you're working with currently that you feel like the collective would benefit from that we haven't brought up yet?
Oh, feel like I get told all the time, like, make sure they know this, make sure they know this. And I'm like, ah. Today I like there were several that yelled at me today. So one we just featured in one of my tea classes. Willow is like, don't forget, everyone could benefit from willow bark right now. Um, Golden Seal was like, hey, tell them about me. Like there's a lot just kind of waving. Uh, this was an interesting thought that came to me earlier today, and I was not thinking about you or this podcast, but uh, a great grief plant for people to be working with right now is pomegranate.
Oh, okay.
Hmm. Yeah, and if you think mythologically, pomegranate's related to the underground, so it's a great grief.
Right.
Those who are
Com
stuck in a grieving process.
Coming back around to the
Uh-huh.
Persephone.
Yeah,
Okay. I do.
yeah,
I love when it like syncs up just naturally
yeah,
like this. Like
yeah.
this whole podcast has just been amazing. So,
Yay!
and I just love being in your field. Like you have your own like essence that's healing
Well,
similar to
thank
like
you.
a plants, but it's
Yeah.
like it's like a Ruth. And I've asked you this before because I'll come into your office and I'll feel just like miserable. Well, lately I've been doing a lot better, but when we first met, I was not
Mhm.
good. Okay.
Right.
And I was like, well, actually, now that I'm here, I don't have any of these symptoms. So, like, just
Mhm.
being near a Ruth does this. Okay. Like,
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I
but
think it's more the plants that are around me than me,
right,
but it's
right.
their energy. But
But you got
yeah,
to take notes because I'm like, well, actually, I don't know what any of my symptoms are now that I'm here.
it's true though. And like people will be in the conversation and they'll be like, "Well, I feel great now." Like, and I'm like, "No, you still have to like you're gonna have to re-up. Like you can't just
Right.
it doesn't disappear totally. This is, a temporary feeling. But it is like whenever I have a really bad day, if I can come down in the apothecary because
Hmm.
I can see them, I can feel them. Um everything gets better. Like
Yes.
everything gets better. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. So, could you take a minute to kind of share some of the things that you make and the best way for people if they wanted to order something or they wanted to contact or follow your work, the best way that they can find you?
Yeah, so I guess the best way to find me, Facebook, everything's the Empirical Herbalist or Empirical Herbalist, and that's Empirical Herbalist, because it always gets misspelled, but I didn't come up with the name, I was told to use that name. So, um, but I make, you can follow me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm supposed to be getting more back on TikTok. TikTok has its own issue, like my issues. It's not TikTok, but I worry about the professionalism of how it looks, but that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you can follow me. I have a newsletter that comes out. You can sign up on my website, theempiricalherbalist.com. I make teas. I have a lot of different teas, like a lot.
Yes.
I'm always creating different teas. Um, and then I do tinctures, glycerites, vinegars, sprays, balms, cigarettes. Um, I do seasoning blends for cooking, which are like my takes, and everything that I make is all my recipes, but the cooking ones are always a little different. Like people are surprised at how like or other herbalists are like, I'm so surprised at how like vital these plants are and what the different flavor profiles. And then for like open houses, I do specialty things. So I'm working on like spring and summer soaps right now for my open house. And I'm just always, I'm happiest when I'm playing with the herbs. They're happiest when I'm playing with the herbs. So I'm just always making new stuff. Sometimes it may be a problem, but it's always fun.
Right.
I think that the herbs, like we've talked about working with them, I think the herbs prefer to be played with.
Ah, I could see that.
So it's not as serious. It does the same work, like it does the same healing, but your expectations may be different. So it's not so much like it's not working. It's not like I don't have the desired effect.
Hmm.
They're not here to give us the desired effect. They're here to give us what we need. So, get over like if like get over your expectation and let them do the leading. So I think plain is just a better way to look at it.
Yeah, as you said that, I just imagine Iris going and like picking this and picking that and
Uh-huh.
making her little potion with on the top of her sandbox that collects all this
Yes.
water, you know. And
Yes.
it's
That was
that
my
one that
favorite thing as a
wonder.
child. Yes, like my favorite hobby. I got in trouble constantly for it. It's my favorite thing. Everything I got in trouble for as a kid is what I do now and make money. And I think that is my ultimate revenge.
Yes, same, same. Like my inner child is happy, but you know, the whole
Yes.
time I got in so much trouble for, you know, all of these things that brought me joy. And now I'm like, well, I'm joy is actually the theme of my life. So all of this
Hmm.
stuff mattered. This whole
Yes.
time you guys told me to focus on this or that, but that actually didn't matter at all.
Exactly. I mean, literally, I got in trouble every single day for speaking my mind. I would get
Hmm.
my mouth mashed. I would get in trouble for playing with my food, and I would get in trouble for making messes in the yard with, like, why are you putting plants in all of the water that we're collecting for the garden or whatever? And I'm like, because it's the most fun. And literally, that's what I do now. And haha.
Yes. It is good in retrospect, you know, as a mother.
Uh-huh.
Because, you know, Iris is Aquarius, so I think of
Uh-huh.
you a lot with her.
Yeah.
But she's just drawing on everything. Like her rug,
Oh,
like she drew flowers all over her rug the other day. And she was like, "Well, it's mine." You
yeah.
know? And then I was thinking about just how much she loves art, and I'm like, I already know that when she's gonna get old, she's gonna probably be doing murals. She's gonna be
Right.
painting on walls and all this. But it's because I can look back in my own childhood and see how it was already kind of coming to the surface. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I really think that she's gonna like big canvases. She's gonna want like to paint on weird
Yeah.
stuff that like other people wouldn't think about.
Yeah.
Um, you know, or maybe textile because she's like always drawing on
Right.
fabric. So I'm like, But yeah, I mean, it's like our kids are showing us already,
Yes.
what what brings them joy. And then it just evolves in these really cool
Mhm.
ways. And it's such a beautiful thing to watch
Oh,
someone
they tell
grow.
us, like, I thoroughly believe they tell us from the moment, like before they're conceived, but definitely from conception. And then their birth story tells you so much about
Yes.
what your relationship is going to be. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense as they start to get older. You're like, oh, that's why that name resonated so
Uh-huh.
much. So I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So, do you have any upcoming classes? I know that sometimes you make them available through Zoom. So, people that are listening in other parts of the country could maybe log into some of those. So,
Yeah, probably after this airs, the next one would be doing a class on dreams, what dreams may come.
mm,
And it is all about herbs and how they affect our dreams and ways to tap into herbal allies to connect to your dreams. Because I didn't realize until I was a grown adult that not everyone dreams, quote unquote. Like they dream, they just don't remember their dreams.
mm-hmm.
And so we're going to do herbs for lucid dreaming and herbs for deepening your dream state and herbs to help you sleep. And people are going to be making sleep mask and like an herbal bath salt. And we can
Okay.
do that on Zoom. And the supplies are going to get shipped to people who want to make the things at home too. So everybody gets to make stuff. Because like I said, I think people need to play with them. Um,
Yes.
and then I try to do at least one Zoom option a month if I'm teaching out of the apothecary. So um, hopefully we'll be continuing. We've been doing these tea class and discoveries, and they work really well on Zoom. I send a packet. There's 3 teas that everyone tries without knowing what they're going to get into. And
Okay.
this is so fun. So people trust me, and people come and they take, and everybody gets like a workbook packet. And we start with T1, and I don't tell them anything about it, like nothing.
Mm,
And they look at the tea, we note the color, and then we spend like 15 minutes kind of in silence, and people are drinking the tea and figuring out what they think it is, where it resonates, what properties it has. And then afterwards, we discuss it. And then I make the reveal and tell them what they were drinking and what it does. And it's so amazing because every single class, new people who've never even like had an herbal tea, it doesn't matter how right they are in their own intuition or just like how super close, it's just fascinating to watch. And for me, it's very entertaining and I love it. But to watch them like gain confidence in
mm.
their own way of expressing what they feel from partaking or tapping into that part of their body, it's amazing. It's one of the favorite things I've ever done in 20 years of herbalism classes. Like I love it so much. And I think it's gonna end like we've done 3 so far, and I'm probably gonna continue on. It's just so cool to see. And like the plants tell me what to do, like which ones, like I don't pick them. I'm not conscious when I pick them. So
Mm-hmm.
um and like last month we did one and I was like, these don't even have a freaking theme to them. I don't even know what's happening because I was thinking very right-brained. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I started writing stuff out, I was like, this is the most brilliant combination I've ever seen. It's like, this is the most brilliant way of them working together. And
Yeah.
could not have made it up. It was fabulous. And so I just always like am in awe of just how smart they are, you know?
Yes. Yes. I love that so much. And I will
Yeah.
say that anytime I've taken a class with you or just been in your presence, like I always feel so empowered.
Aw.
And I used to be really anxious because, like the way that they plant these seeds in our mind that like you hear like, oh, you take too much, you're going to get hurt. And there's all this fear around it, but like not around other things that are probably more toxic. But I remember just being afraid that what if I don't know something about a plant and I don't use it properly and I like hurt myself but I felt like when I really started working with you, I was more empowered to trust my own ability to research and to look
Mhm.
into things and to, make my own stuff or to be like, no, this tea does work for that. Like,
Right.
and it's like I started to remember things, right? But it's like, I was fully dependent on you in the beginning because I didn't know anything. But I love that instead of like keeping me in that state, like your whole
Mhm.
focus was empowering me and I was able to learn to where it's like, okay, well, I just know that now. Like, I don't need to
Yes.
ask her that because she taught me that.
Yes.
And so I love that, you're sharing the information with people, not to keep them, forever clients,
Right.
but to actually empower them as individuals and to really help educate as far as like the plants need to be known right now. And so it
Yes.
is this beautiful, and I can just see that that's your underlining purpose,
Mhm.
and then there's absolutely points where I'm like, you have to help me directly because it's like a new
Right.
plant or I'm in a healing crisis. And that's where you shine even more because it's like, well, that's where I need a professional. But I've learned so much and I didn't realize that I was learning because it's so fun.
Yes.
But now people will ask me, I'm working with people homeopathically, and I'm like, well, actually, I think you could just, have some tea. I don't even think you need
Hmm.
a remedy. And it's because of how confident I feel in my ability based on the things that I've learned from you. So,
This is the best compliment ever
yeah,
because it's really what I want. And like,
yeah,
even when I started, I remember telling Glenn and he was like, "This doesn't make sense," but I trusted you because I was like, if I do my job well, no one will need me.
right, right.
This is exact like the ultimate goal is that no one will need like obviously like foraging is a whole other thing. Like there's certain
Right.
things that I'm
There's
like, no, you
always more that we
absolutely
can
need an
learn.
expert. But
Yes.
no one should have to be like, oh crap, what do I do? I need to make this soup. Okay, like I've taught you like like I've taught you these
Yes.
that you should be able to go into any kitchen and
Hmm.
put together a healing broth based on things I've taught you. Like
Yes.
that's exactly what I want. Like we all need to be able to do that
Yes.
all the
I
time.
love it. I love it. I love
And
it. Your
figure
work
out
is
ways
so
to
beautiful.
trick it for you, like what makes sense for you and what's available. So much of herbalism is like the history of herbalism, not necessarily now, but the history has been like it has to be this rarity, and we've crossed the seven seas, and we've like, and I'm like, what is available? Do you have one grocery store in your small town and you are getting this spice and that's it? Great. Let's make this work for you. That's what's available to you.
Right.
What fits your budget? What fits like all of that? Like, yeah,
Right. And then what's seasonal, what's
exactly.
blooming in that point that is going to have healing properties for what we're going through in the present. And
Yeah,
so, and that's where your newsletters and things are so nice because I feel like it keeps it all fresh. It's like, okay, this
thank
is
you.
in this is in bloom. I'm going to go out my yard and look for
Mhm.
it.
I'm just
So,
started today. I just started this thing I'm going to be sharing for the next few weeks. It's called Harbingers of Spring and why,
oh,
like, what the plants of spring specifically have to offer. And like, I'm going to feature, like, I've written out my list of what I'm going to feature, and I'm excited. They're not necessarily what people might think they're gonna like. I would be talking about.
awesome. Well, I'm definitely looking
Yeah.
forward to that. And people could find that by following you. Are you going to post that on your
Yeah.
social media?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
going to post it on at least Facebook. It depends on how long the write-up is, if it can go on Instagram or not. But yeah, at least on Facebook.
Instagram.
I know. I'm
I'm like,
like,
it has to be square. It's limited. I have to post it in the comments. I'm trying. I don't want to turn this into me being
but
bitter
it's
about.
true. I have the same thing, and I'll be like, Dylan, I need help because my daughter's 18 and she knows how to do things that I don't know how to do. I'm like, how do I get this to link? And it is
Yes.
frustrating.
Yes, I appreciate you for at least trying with Instagram because it
Yeah.
is.
I think you do better than I do. I think you
Yeah, well, I'm not necessarily as in my sunny disposition the whole time. So I have made it work, but I don't like being told it needs to be square, and I don't like being limited
do.
to what I can say. But
I
I,
agree.
there's great people on Instagram though, so that's why I do it. So everybody needs to know how much work we put in to keep those
Yes.
people
Yes, because we
informed.
just wanted to do our job. We didn't want to promote our job. And I think
Right.
that's a whole other topic, but still, like, that is. like that's a different skill set. And because we work with plants or, astrology or homeopathy or whatever, like social media is not in that. Well,
Yes.
that's not what we learned. That's not, yeah.
Yes. Thank God for the people that helped me along the way, or this
Hmm.
podcast would not exist from just
Yeah.
the technological speed bumps. So,
I can't even imagine. I cannot even
yes.
imagine.
Well, thank you so very much for coming on the show. I'm very excited to share your
Thank
beauty with
you.
our audience. It means so much to me. So,
Well, I'm
thank
so excited to be here. Thank you. And I don't think I made too big of a fool of myself. So I think that's great.
you. No, you sound great. You sound great. And thank you all for tuning in. Check us out next time on the Astral Hour.